Well, hello, it's that time again, chinwag time. Thanks for joining me. It's about crafting. I read you a little bit from my story. Well, this week it's a little bit different because I had a friend stay, her and her husband, Jan, and they've stayed for a week. And I must say, it's done Pete and I a power of good. It's been a long old journey for Pete. It's Jan the 23rd he came out of hospital and he's still working on his recovery, but having friends to stay was lovely, to be able to chat. And we went out walking every day because the weather here in the southeast of England has been glorious. Not too hot, not too cold, just perfect. Lovely sea breeze. And as I'm looking out of my window here now, the grass has all been cut. We leave a part of the lawn to be long so that all the insects and all the animals, all of that. And it's just been cut. So I know now we're getting on in August and yeah. Oh dear, time's going by, isn't it? So I'm trying to make the most of every single day, as I'm sure you are too. We've been for our walk this morning and it was glorious. I thought at first, it's breezy, it's going to be chilly, but it wasn't. It's a lovely warm breeze and yeah, we're really enjoying this August weather. Well, of course, that's different for where you are, and some of you have got horrible weather and oh dear. So my thoughts are with you if it's not exactly how it should be or you want it. So what does this episode hold? Every episode is different, as I'm sure you'll understand. This episode is a lot of crafting, and Jan, who stayed with me, well, it's been a joy because I'm doing a quilt as you go quilt, and I showed how to make the macarons, if you've seen that one. And I showed Jan, a couple of years ago now, how to make a macaron. And I think she's made coming up for 80. She's made so many. So every person she knows has had a macaron and they're beautiful. And then she started doing, like the cloth that I did for my table, the quilt as you go. I showed her how to make a little placemat, and she's made rather a lot of those. And so I've been saying, why don't you make a quilt? I could never do that. I could never do that. I said, well, really, it's just a lot of placemats all joined up together. And when she saw the squares that I were making last time, I can do it, she said. But, she'd like to be shown again. So that's what I'm doing. A few of you have said, will I show you how to do it? And so this video, I show you how to make the squares with the Daisy and Grace templates. I also show you how to get a tracing from a book onto a piece of fabric. Then it's, that's the other thing, you see, that Jan came and she said, because I'm reading you my story that I've written, just things that I remember about my life. Jan came with a book. Oh, look, I'm starting to write my story too. I was so thrilled, just jotting down these, nuggets really that the family will treasure. So I had a chat with her about the story that she's writing, the bits from her life. And I found it interesting. Don't we all find each other's lives interesting? And so we have a chat about that. At the end, July the 9th, on the 8th, we went down to Devon, and the first day rained and rained. And on the 9th, the next day, the first day we were there, we went out for a little walk by the river and a walk along the Devon lanes. It was lovely weather then. And so that's my film. The river's quite, full, because it had rained the day before. And yeah, it's lovely just to walk beside that river. It was really lovely. And the birds we heard and what we saw. So I hope you enjoy the little film. I usually end with a little film of something that we've done. So this one was way back in July. I've had another question from a viewer. When I make my socks, how do I get them the same? Because I like them the same. I'm not keen on stripes here and stripes there. If it happens, it happens. But what I do is, this is wood pigeon. And what I do is I find the end. This looks like the end, yes. I find the end and I think to myself, what's a good place to start? Well, here's a good... I want to get a good place to start. This is very pale actually, so I don't know if you'll see. So that bit is stripy and then I go into light grey. So I will cut that off and I will start with that light grey piece. And that will be the start of my first sock. Then when I come to do my next sock, I will trace it until I find the light grey and I'll start my second sock. That way they'll both be the same. So it is quite simple when you know how, but I know what you mean. It can be daunting if you haven't ever knitted socks. And this lovely viewer hadn't knitted for years and years and years and watched my videos and was inspired to knit the animals from Louise Crowther's book, and now she's inspired to knit some socks. So well done and good luck with them. Any other questions, just ask. I'm happy to oblige. So what should we do? Should we go straight into the crafting and then I'll come back and say, I hope you enjoyed that and la la la. I'll see you in a minute. So in this tin, I've cut out some pieces, as you can see here, all different sizes. Just when I was in the mood. So there's some pieces and some back pieces. So I've cut that out. Then with this piece, I cut some wadding. And make sure that fits nicely in the middle. Oh, it's a little bit long there, you see. Stretch it, no, that's all right. Just make sure that wadding can sometimes stretch. So there we are, that looks right, doesn't it? And then I've cut a piece out here and that will sit on the top. And here we go with 2 pins. So you don't knock it off its place, get it just right. That's sitting in the middle. And there we are, and I take that off and now I'm ready to do my edges in. That's going to be a bright piece, isn't it? All he's doing is colours, isn't he? Pink, grey. So that's to show you how I assembled it before I sewed it. But now I'm making a quilt for my great-grandson. And I've had some requests of how to do it. So this is what I'm making. I've got to make 20 of the squares. And then I'm going to do the centre differently. I thought it would be too busy to make the whole quilt of these squares. So here's one I've made. You can see a 5-inch square, 2.5 by 5, 2.5 by 5 positioned up the other way, and a 2.5 by 2.5. So I've done 1. As I say, I need to do 20. 2, 3, 4, and number 5, and this one's number 6. Sew those 2 together, sew these 2 together, and then sew that with that. So I'll show you. Let's put these over here. Now I do it the quilter's way. I'll show you how other people do it and how I do it. So you fold that. I mean, you can iron as you go, but I don't bother. As long as I know that's up to there, and that's up to the edge. Put it up to the edge and then fold it over. Now before you do anything else, I use the flat side on the top. I just clip that there like that with the flat side on the top. Turn it round, fold that to the edge, fold that to the edge. You can just do a little bit of finger pressing if you like. Make sure it comes, and there you are. I use the flat bit because and there you are. Now, some people, they just fold that together like that and fold it over. In fact, I think that's the way she shows you, Daisy and Grace, and just make a square corner like that. That's not me, I'm a quilter. So what I want to do is fold that in a little V, fold that in a little V and make a mitered edge. Just a little bit away from the edge to give you that turning room. And then when you've turned it and turned it, there you are. You've got a beautiful little mitered corner. And back with my flat bit. That'll hold that nicely. There. Turn it round. I'm going to turn that into a V, just a little bit away, otherwise it won't turn. Hold that with your finger. Turn that a little V, otherwise it won't make a neat edge. To meet the edge, turn over, and you'll see we've got a nice mitered corner. Who doesn't like a nice mitered corner? And that's it. There we go. It's always awkward doing things on camera. So, how do I sew that? I start with my needle away from the edge. I put my finger on the knot and pull it through, and that's disappeared. Clickety clack, and then I do little hemming stitches. I go under and come up. I take a little stitch from there, come under and come up. A little stitch on the piece of fabric and then come up on the edge. That's called hemming stitch. I'm using a thread that matches the backing, because if it's going to show, it's going to show on the backing, not on the piece of fabric that you've chosen as your 2.5 by 5 or whatever size you're doing. Coming up to the edge, I want those two to meet nicely. So I come up into that corner of that one, make sure that's turned over properly. I'll put that one back there. It's squashing it down a bit. That's it. And then just take another bit from that corner. That's nice and secure now. Go down and up. And I'm going to run along here, just with hemming stitch. But of course, if you haven't done sewing before, what's hemming stitch? Well, you take a little bit out of the elephant piece and come up. on the backing bit. A little bit on the elephant piece and a little bit on the backing bit. Come up right on the edge of that little corner, and then right on the edge of that little corner. Pull them together. You've got that joined. And then we're just running down this edge. It's quite fun doing this because each little piece is finished. And each little piece doesn't take too long. And that's always a good thing, isn't it? Sometimes we get put off making things that we know are going to take forever. So I need to make 20 of those squares. And then I'm going to make 4 big ones for the centre. And I'll show you that as I go along. I want to make the 20 first. And then I'll make the centre ones. Now here I am coming to the edge. I want that edge to meet exactly that edge, because then it's a mitered edge. So just catch the two together. There we are. And we're nearly there, aren't we? And of course the thread isn't going to last. It wouldn't, I'm on camera. But you'll get the gist. Coming up to another corner. I go in, come up right on that corner, right on the edge. And then go over and catch that edge as close as you can. Oh, I think we might just do it. We might just do it. I usually know how much cotton to take. I wrap it round my needle, I push it through, and there it is. Finger on the knot, pull it through. Put that in my, take my pins out. And there it is. Can you see how nicely that mitered corner looks? So the next thing I do is just do a running stitch of quilting around. So this is a little bag I made from Rose Garden Patchwork, and I keep my quilting threads that I might want to use for going round the squares. So what am I going to choose for this? I think the green's nice. So here we go. So I bring my thread up, put my finger on the knot and pull it through. That hides, and then I literally just go round doing not too small stitches because I want to see them, just to give it that quilted look. You can do this on each piece, or you can wait until you've sewn them together and go round the pieces. It's entirely up to you. I just go down and up and along, a running stitch. And you want a colour that you're going to see, that's going to show up, I think. Bit of fun. George's 1.5. And I'm using all my fabric. I don't really want to buy anything. And the back of this square is a Lynette Anderson that I had. I've made quite a few quilts with Lynette Anderson, and I just thought it was ideal. I'm going to go through to the back just because that makes the stitch. I wrap the cotton round my needle, put it through, bring it out somewhere different, put my finger on the knot and pull it through, and then cut it off. That knot then is nicely inside, and there's my piece. So now I'm going to show you how to sew that together, how I sew it together. And then I'll show you how I get the design from the book onto my square. I put right sides together. As usual, I pop my needle where I want it. Pull the knot through. That's a big knot. That's no good because it's double thread. Oh, it's gone though. So now I'll do a little linking stitch to make sure that corner's very firm. I take a tiny bit from here, from the back, just in that crease, pull it through. A tiny bit in front, like the rung of the ladder in the front. Tiny bit in the back, because I really want this, as it's going to be a quilt. Quilts are, well, you take it from me, I've made many a quilt for my grandchildren, and they're fought over, they're wrapped round, they're well used. And I'm taking a little bit from the front and a little bit from the back. If yours aren't for your grandchildren and it's going to go on the back of a sofa, it's not quite so important that the stitches are so small, but I feel a quilt needs to be sewn together properly. So take your time. I like to pull it up as I go. I can really see that's nice and firm. I could put a little clip on there just to keep, so I know that's exactly in place. And going across here. It's quite a nice stitch to do. I enjoy it, just sitting, and you can see how when you pull it, the whole thing pulls together. That's why it's called a ladder stitch, because you can just do it to the end and then pull it. But I like to make sure, you know, you can do it quite loosely. Let's do it loosely and then pull it. And then pull it. I like to pull it as I go. I think we've got someone mowing their lawn now. Nearly there. Tiny little stitches so there's no gaps. And you don't want any loops either, so make sure that's smooth. When you've got a double thread, you can leave one of the pieces of cotton behind. Hope you can see this okay. There we are. I've come to the end. I'm going to join those two corners together. Nice firm. I'm going to push it through so it's somewhere different. Cut the thread. Unpin that. And that's sewn together well. So there we are. I have shown you that many a time, but I have been asked to show you again. So now what I'm going to show you is how I get the design that I'm going to do from the book. So what's the next one I want to do? I think I'll do the bee. Now, how to get that onto here, onto your fabric. I use this DMC magic paper. I couldn't quite understand the instructions because, well, it says draw the design. That's your first instruction. Draw the design. Well, how, what, where, when? You either put it up on the window so that you can see through the book, or you use a light box that I've got. Now, I've got rather a big light box here. You can get light boxes that are as thin as, you know, thin as thin. And you get them on Amazon for £13. They're not expensive. This is a light box that my darling friend made for me. Now, I've got a smooth piece on the back and a scratchy piece on the top. Now, how to get that onto your fabric? Let me show you. I've got a piece of calico. That's what I'm doing it on. I'm just going to iron that. And on the back, in the middle, I'm going to iron a piece of, we don't say ironing, we just say press it. That's all it needs, just to press it on, to melt the glue behind. That will save me seeing any of my embroidery threads through it. That's the right way. Now, I find, and this is a good tip, I find that having that fabric warm, I'm just going to cut out the smallest piece that I can because I want to save every piece of this. I peel off this backing. Whoopsie. Don't drop it. I peel off this backing. Comes away quite easily. And the back of that is sticky. Now, if I put my iron on the top of that, I find it does melt a bit. So just having that fabric warm means that that will stick very nicely on there. I hope you can see that. It's just stuck. I don't need to put my iron on that. And now I've got my design on my fabric. I will embroider over that. And by magic, when I just put that in some water, it doesn't matter if it's cold, warm or what, I just leave it for 5 minutes. This piece will just melt away. There's no chance of it coming back because it's literally melted away. And all you're left with is your embroidery. There's no sign of it. It's gone. You can literally see it floating to the top of the bowl of water. It's perfect. It's the best way, I find. You do need a light box, or you could tape it to your window if you wanted. A little bit more awkward, isn't it? So there we are. If you cut your calico or your fabric big enough, mine's only just. Should you want it in a hoop, it's now in a hoop. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you learned a bit from it. And even if you're not going to do quilt as you go, it's interesting, or it can be interesting, to see how it's done. And yeah, the finished product. I'm going to do 20 squares round the edge, and then I'm going to do 4 big squares. The 4 big squares are going to consist of 5-inch squares, 4 5-inch squares, and then 2.5 by 5 round. I'll show you as I go, but I thought it would be less fussy than doing those small squares all over the quilt, so they'll make the edging. So it's coming together nicely. I'm not in a rush. As I said before, it'll take its time. I just do it when I want to. I'm now going to put up my crafting table, because that was another question. What does my crafting table look like? And so this morning, before I started filming, I showed you what my crafting table looks like. It folds down to just those 3 drawers, and there's 3 drawers the other side. Just spans across my 2 windows nicely, so I've got a nice lot of light. My iron's up here at the moment because I'm doing some work with it here. That's the bag that my son-in-law's socks are in, Mallard. This has got fabric in it that I'm using. It's all connected with that. I'll show you when I get to it. This is my jumper I'm knitting. I think it's called Forest Light. In there are the Bunny Wishes socks. And this I'm doing again, so it's on here, because as you know, the pen came through after about 2 years, I must say, but it will not iron off. It won't. So I've taken it off, and I'm going to replace it to go on the top of this. So there you see it. I'm quite a tidy person. I don't have things all over the house. I lose track otherwise. So everything I'm working on is put on my table, and then I get up in the morning or whatever, and I think, what shall I work on? What do I fancy? I know where it is. It's on the table. So now I'm going to put up a little chat that I have with Jan about her story that she's writing. I'm thrilled to bits, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. I'll see you after that. Well, hello, this is Jan, my friend, and we've been friends since 1973. So we go back a bit, don't we?
We do.
We've got 2 girls each, both the same ages, and you've got a son as well, haven't you, yes. Philip? Yeah. And we come from Enfield, and we've got a lot in common, really, haven't we?
We keep clicking, don't we?
Yeah, yes. We do. Yes. So we've been friends all the way through. And here we are. So she's been here for a week with hubby. And, well, because I've, been reading you my story, Jan came with a book and said, I've started writing it. I've started writing my story. I said, brilliant. Will you tell the viewers what you've written? And so you're not going to read it because it's not polished up enough yet, but
No.
we're going to talk about a story. Well, we've all got a story, haven't we?
We have.
And we find each other's stories interesting. Now, the first thing that springs in my head, Jan, is there is a statue of one of your relatives. I don't know where and I don't know why. Tell us.
He's my great-great-great-grandfather,
Right.
Mr. Savage, and he invented the merry-go-round.
What with the horses
With the
merry-go-round?
horses, yes, yeah.
Well, I never. The merry-go-round.
Yes.
We
yeah.
love those.
We
Everybody
do.
loves those. And so where is his...
Oh, that's in King's Lynn.
In King's Lynn. How amazing. Do you walk past it and think, oh...
Oh, I never go to King's Lynn,
don't
so...
you? Oh, we'll have to go there
But
just to
apparently
see
he's a
it.
lovely man, very
Was he?
lovely man.
Well, to think that up. So, tell us a bit about your mum and dad.
Mum and dad.
Yeah.
My darling mum and dad.
Yeah.
My dad was a fireman in the London Blitz, so very dangerous times. You can appreciate that. The war times, bombs dropping here and there. And but he never spoke about it. He used to come home tired and never ever spoke about it. I think it was too upsetting for things that he'd experienced and seen. So
Must have been, mustn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But his solace was they did have the fire brigade, or this little fire brigade had a small band.
Right.
I think it's about 12 men, and Dad used to play the drums. Sadly, I never got to see Dad play the drums. I often think I'd love to have seen him play the drums. But I think he used to play wind instrument as well. He liked the oboe, but he enjoyed that. Yeah.
And he conducted as well, didn't he?
He conducted as well.
Yeah.
But the house was always filled with music because Dad loved music, so that was nice.
That was lovely.
Yeah.
And you love music too, don't you? Yeah.
Mum was a hairdresser, and actually she was one of 4 children, two brothers and 2 sisters, or 2 girls, and they had a little shop in Chetwynd Road. That was at Highgate, and I whenever I went in, which wasn't very often, but it was very, very old-fashioned. Each cubicle of the ladies' department was covered with, there was a big curtain, because you could never see anybody sitting under the dryer with curlers. That was not done in those days.
Yes.
And I could always remember smelling this, what was it called now? Ammonia, the strong ammonia smell. Don't smell, take you back.
Oh, yes.
And there they were, having these perms, blue
rinse.
blue rinse. Blue rinse perms.
How times have changed.
Yeah, I know. I mean, not like today, sit in the shop window and everyone's walking past looking at you. But they were very different times in those days.
Yeah, and there was a men's section there, wasn't there?
And there was a men's section the other side of the
and your mum was a good hairdresser?
She was a very good hairdresser, yes.
Yeah.
And she always kept her hair nice. I think as hairdressers always do. They always look so lovely, don't they? Keep their hair nice. Yes.
And what year was your mum and dad born?
Mum was born 1910 and Dad was a year younger, so 1911, wouldn't it be? Yeah.
It seems like another time, doesn't it, when you say that?
It really does.
Yeah, and it was. And it must have been,
Hard years, because they went through the war, didn't they?
Absolutely. And being a fireman in the war, in the Blitz. I mean, and now tell me then, what year were you born?
1943.
So middle of the war?
Yeah, I was a war baby, wasn't I?
Yeah, war baby. And your sister was 3 years older, I think.
3 years older.
So there's your mum with her husband fighting the fires in London, in the Blitz, and she's got 2 little girls.
Really
That's quite
tough,
something.
Really tough times,
Quite
weren't they?
something, isn't it?
And food was quite scarce.
Yeah.
Mum had to go shopping every day to get just the necessities because
with the coupons.
Yeah. It was hard times. There wasn't a lot of money.
You talked about gardens, your nan's garden and your garden at home.
Right.
Tell me about those.
Well, Gran's garden was a very large garden. She lives at Hunstanton. It was a lovely garden, apple trees and lavender. And there we go, back to smells again. She had box hedges all the way down the path.
Yeah.
And whenever I smell a box hedge, they're like little green bushes, aren't they?
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't know. And that smell takes me right back to that garden. But our garden that we had at Highgate, it was a small garden. Mum, there was a beautiful shrub in the corner, and Mum had got this sheet and put it over the shrub for my sister and I, and that was our little den. And we used to have jam sandwiches, you know, come home from school, or whatever, or before school as well. And there we were, and that was our little den. That was just for us.
The bee's knees, jam sandwiches. You couldn't get anything better.
Jam sandwiches.
Yeah. And then it was time for you to start school.
That was time to, that was another era. Well, the school was just at the top of the road. I was 5 or 4.5, 5, I think. I can't quite remember my age. And I was very nervous, like I suppose all children are when they start school. And my first day, I always remember this little boy in the class wetting his chair. He was so nervous, and I felt so sorry for him. Really, I felt sorry for him. But one of the teachers, or maybe just the only teacher I had at the time, I can't remember, she was very, very strict, and she frightened me. And when I did, I decided to run home.
Oh my goodness.
I ran home. It was only just down the road, but I know that was a big thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
But Mum never really was cross or really told us off as children, you know, kind of that strict. She was really upset about it, you know. So she took me back with trepidation, with myself. I was feeling quite nervous about it. But she had a little word with the teacher and everything quietened down, so that was okay. But I would have rather been home in my den.
Yeah, another thing we had in common. And we had mums that stuck up for us.
Absolutely. Yes,
worth gold, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for the fact that she went back to have a word, she could have left it.
Yeah.
But that was lovely for them, wasn't it?
Yeah. And talking about your nan in Hunstanton, I know every 6 weeks school holiday up you go to Norfolk, wouldn't you?
On the
what a treat.
On the steam train.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
And there we were, dear old Nan's, for 6 weeks, and the beach wasn't too far at the bottom of the garden. We could just walk through her garden, through a lovely field where there were chickens. She had chickens. We used to pick an egg for tea. That was quite exciting.
Yeah.
Well, you'd be having chickens, Penny, you know, it's lovely having chickens, isn't it? And at the end of the field, just across a little road, and we were there on the beach, and we spent more or less every day till kind of early evening. It was beautiful.
And she had
lovely
a car.
Beach.
I mean, going back in those days,
yes,
to have a car was quite something.
It was.
Yeah. And you used to do...
When we arrived, when I used to stand on the running board, thinking I was quite grown up.
When you were 8...
Right.
Your mum and dad...
had a sweet shop.
Yeah, they bought a sweet shop. Sweets were rationed until 1953.
Yep.
So it couldn't have been a sweet shop as we know a sweet shop now.
No.
At the beginning, you know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why I've got a sweet tooth, Penny, isn't it?
Yeah. And you say you remember the coupons, so very small
remember
little coupons.
Little tiny coupons, didn't get very much at all.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were only there for 5 years because it was a tough job for Mum and Dad.
Yeah.
Because they had papers as well.
Yeah.
And if the paper boy was ill or didn't turn up, whatever, Dad had to go out, and there they are every morning, 7 days a week, marking up all these papers. Yeah. And they were heavy as well.
Yes.
So it was a lot. My brother was quite young then.
Oh, you had a brother as...
Yeah, he was young then.
He was born the same year as me, I think, 49.
He was,
yeah.
1949. Yeah. So they stuck it out for 5 years, so we moved on from there. That was good.
Yeah. So then we come to, leaving school.
Leaving school.
What did you want to do?
Oh, I wanted to be a window dresser.
Yeah.
I had that desire to do that. Yeah.
That's quite unusual, I think.
Is it?
Yes. I mean, not many people I knew you even thought about window dressing.
Right.
That's fantastic. Did you manage to get a job?
I did.
Yeah.
It was quite easy to get jobs in those days, wasn't it? If you didn't like one, you could choose and get another one. Not like today.
Yeah.
Poor young ones today.
Yeah.
It was up in Piccadilly at Fortnum and Mason's.
Fortnum and
How I
Mason's.
got that job, I don't know. But
Well, there you are. You did.
I was there only for 3 months because, here we go again. I was under a strict person again, going up to school days, isn't it?
Yes.
And I worked in the juvenile department, and I could still see her face, a little short lady, little thin lips, and she was so strict. And I never got any training for window dressing. All I was doing was running around, doing errands, being taught how to box what people had brought.
Yeah.
In lovely tissue paper and all beautiful boxes. Right. And that was my job. You know, as a 17-year-old, I was impetuous. If I'd stuck it out, maybe I would have eventually become one. So there we go.
What did you do then?
I ended up working in the Central Electricity Generating Board, a typist.
And then one day, when you're at home, someone came a knocking.
Knocked on the door.
Yeah.
A friend, Michael, who I knew because he used to do the paper round for Mum and Dad, so I knew Michael. But he had a handsome boy with him called Bob.
Called Bobby.
Bobby.
I call him Bobby Dazzler because he cleans windows. And there's sparkling.
Still does.
And you clean windows, don't you?
We still do,
They're
don't we?
still working, cleaning their windows.
Well, only Monday mornings, folks. Not long weeks, so we enjoy it.
You do it together, don't you?
Yeah, we
and you
do.
keep picking up new work.
I know, we do. We're supposed to be slowing down and maybe retiring soon.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's what you do.
That'll
She's
happen one
very,
day.
very good at it. Very good. I'm going to put a little film up as she
dear.
gives a demonstration as to how to clean a window. I tell you, it's amazing.
Don't look too closely, folks.
But so yes, you went to courting with this lad.
Yeah. First evening, yes, he called back on Friday, nice foursome. We went to Southend.
Yeah.
And on the Kersal, little rise on the Kersal, and then walk along the pier, which is the longest pier in the country, isn't it? That was how the romance started, and we've been married for 59 years.
Yeah, 59, it's fantastic, isn't it? And I'm so pleased because writing my story has inspired you to now start writing your story, and we've talked about it.
Yes.
And it's lovely for your family, and carry on writing.
It's a nice legacy, isn't it?
It is, it's lovely. Just ordinary things. We're not talking about anything major happening.
No.
Ordinary things,
That's
how
right,
different
Penny.
they were.
That's right, Penny.
You know, but
yes.
how... Yeah,
Yes.
things we want to know about each other, really.
That's
isn't
right,
it?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing.
Oh, it's
See you
been
ne-
lovely being with you, Penny, and lovely to see everybody.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Yeah, this is how you do it. Lesson number 1. You go round the edges. Round the edges.
She's good, isn't she? Most is for the technique, most is the wrist action. There we go, and done.
Hey, I've just got to go round the edge.
Right. Don't forget the windowsill.
Windowsill.
And turn round, take a bow.
Wasn't that super? I mean, it just came out as a by-you-by that her great-great-great-grandfather invented a machine so that the carousels could go round by steam, and they were exported all over the world. And Banksy put a tongue and an ice cream cone in it when he did King's Lynn, a few bits around there, and he said it was definitely him. Amazing. Anyway, waffle. I found my book. Those of you who aren't new know that I read it in my story, a little book that you know, the bits of my life. And last week I said my favourite book was Little Kanga's Pocket, and here it is. Little Kanga, his mummy. Oh, look. It's just so apt, isn't it? Kanga was the happiest little kangaroo in the village. He always did as Mummy told him and was so friendly that everyone loved him and wanted to play with him. One day he caught a cold and suddenly gave a great big sneeze. And his Mummy told him to use his handkerchief. And he said, I haven't got a handkerchief. So she made him one, and for all his brothers and sisters, and said, pop it in your pocket. But he didn't have a pocket. And so the long and the short of it is, by the end of the book, I just love this book. He went and picked cotton off the tree. He went and picked it and look, made a pocket. And then he had to lay on the kitchen table flat till it had stuck. And they all said, what are you doing? What are you doing? And here he showed his pocket. And I loved it. I just absolutely loved it. It's a cherub storybook. Pictures by Mary A. Brooks, story by Marie A. Battersby, made and printed in Great Britain. Oh, so there we are. I thought it might be Australian, but it's not. It's British. So that's a book of its time. Look out for these other cherub storybooks, The Little Red Lorry and The Brave Little Cowboy. And this is Little Kanga. So that's the, shall I just read you a short bit from my story as I started with that? Last week I was telling you the cupboard fell off the wall that my dad had put up for me, made from sheet metal. So I'll just read you a little bit more. Christmas was a time of great excitement. We usually spent it at Nanny and Grandpa's, although we would have our presents from Mum and Dad before we went. One year I had an up-to-the-minute doll with rooted hair that could be combed. I loved the smell of that doll, a kind of perfumed rubber. Another year I had a lovely doll's house with metal windows and doors. We never had many presents, but what we did have was always just what we wanted, and how Father Christmas knew, I just couldn't fathom. I never knew who to thank for my presents, Father Christmas or Mum and Dad. I must say it was a time of confusion for me. One day Dad bought a movie camera. Chris was about a year old, so I was about 8. Do you want to help me make a film? He asked. I said yes, but didn't really know what he meant. We had a small television set in the corner of the room, and during my school lunch hour, I watched Watch with Mother. Picture books on Monday, Bill and Ben on Tuesdays, Andy Pandy on Wednesday, Rag, Tag and Bobtail on Thursdays, and on Friday, the Wooden Tops. Mummy Wooden Top, Daddy Wooden Top, the twins, and Baby Wooden Top. They had a naughty Dalmatian who lived up to his... They had a naughty Dalmatian whom I loved. Guess what my first big purchase was after I was married? Yep, a naughty Dalmatian who lived up to his screen idol's image. Dad used the movie projector screen for a backdrop and wrote on a large sheet of paper, Toys in Toyland. It didn't look too much like Andy Pandy, but imagination is wonderful at 8. We put a candlewick bedspread on the dining table to act as a floor and used some of my favourite toys. My teddy, which was made of lamb's wool, my squirrel that Grandpa gave me, which was made of sheepskin with a real fur tail as he was a farrier, also my Bugs Bunny bendy toy and some of Chris's toy cars. Somehow I moved these to fit in with the script, and Dad filmed the sequence. When it was finished, he put it into a yellow sleeved envelope and popped it in the post. We had a hard time being patient until it arrived on the doormat processed. Out came the projector and screen, and we all sat around marvelling at the moving film we had made. Honestly, it was brilliant. I thought it was magic. That's all I could think. Had I known David Putnam, do you remember he was a lad who visited his nan who lived in the flat above us? Well, he became Lord David Putnam and produced films. Well, had I known that David Putnam was going to become a lord, I'd have invited him in to view it with us. I think he was a couple of years older than me. But that was my first attempt. Well, I had to do it. I didn't know how it was going to work. And we made a film, and I've still got it. And I enjoy watching it. And I love those bendy toys. You could just bend them and they would, you know, they had wire through them. I think they would sort of go spongy and rotty after a while, but, well, that's what my toys consisted of. So it really is time to end now, otherwise this has gone on far too long. It's a long one today. And so I'm going to put up the little film. Yes, July the 9th, walking along the river and listening to the birds. And we met a sheepdog on our way just at the gate of a farm. And he said hello. It was just a very pleasant day. So I hope you enjoy it too. And I'll see you very soon. Keep an eye out for me. Bye-bye. Take care.